Hey guys, welcome back. We're going to be talking about the phlegmatic leader in ownership.
Yes, we're continuing on with our Becoming an Embodied Catholic Leader podcast series, looking at ownership for the phlegmatic today. All right, So if you are a phlegmatic temperament, tune in. If you got phlegmatics on your team, tune in. All right, everybody should be tuning in other words.
Yes, amen. See you in there.
Please like and subscribe.
Hello, guys. Welcome back.
Welcome back to the Catholic Coaching Podcast. We're continuing on with our series, The Embodied Catholic Leader, Becoming an Embodied Catholic Leader. Been talking a lot about ownership and what that means through the lens of our unique design. We're using temperaments as our tool for focusing us on those that unique design. And today we're talking about the phlegmatic and how the phlegmatic comes to own things. Why is that important, Erin?
All the temperaments struggle with ownership in some way, shape, or form. And so we wanted to bring to light those struggles, but also give some ways out of those struggles, right? So does that answer your question?
Well, yeah, a little bit there, of course. Yeah, certainly we're going to help people in that area. But one of the things that's an important, why we include ownership as a principle of leadership in the first place.
That was your question.
Okay, poor structuring of my question. Okay. Why we include it in the first place here is because we're constantly growing as leaders, or we're called to constantly grow. We're leaders not because we've arrived at some place, but because we're continually growing. And what that growth looks like is more and more of owning our own stuff, owning our own reactions to things, owning our own gifts, and owning where we may be abdicating. I don't know if that's a weird thing of saying, looking at it that way, but
sure.
Just owning those
owning
times,
your habits.
Yes, owning those times where we're not showing up in those areas of giftedness or being judgmental. So we're constantly growing in virtue here, and this is, I think, it's an often missed principle of leadership. Right? Maybe we've heard of extreme ownership, but it's not just owning a task; it's owning what's going on in your own interior life.
Amen.
Is a big thing.
Yeah, owning your own thoughts, your emotions, your actions, your decisions that are all based off of your thoughts. So that's a big piece. But also, I know we're doing this within the realm of leadership, but this skill alone, just owning your stuff, will help you in all relationships.
Yes.
Not just these relationships where you're a leader. So really, we just encourage you guys to listen to all of these and apply these rules. And what we give to you, we apply them to all relationships, because that ownership aspect is so huge. It is so huge. I mean, John Paul II talks about being coming into self-possession. We cannot be a sincere gift of self if we aren't fully possessed. And what does that mean? Possessed is another word. And I mean, I know it sounds like a scary word because you only hear it with demonic possession, but possession, self-possession is not self-indulgent. It is actually an ownership. If you actually look up the word ownership, etymology, word nerd, it actually means possession. So you're actually possessing yourself. There's an ownership of what is going on. And that doesn't mean you become a dictator. That doesn't mean that you judge yourself. It's just this ownership of it. So anyway.
So there's two things that we explore in terms of how somebody comes to embody ownership. And the first thing they have to really own is God's unique design, all right? When we say God's design for the human person, what we're talking about specifically is how the interior life is made visible in and through our bodies. So the body makes visible what is going on in the interior life. Okay, so if our actions are going to be actions of really owning our tasks, owning our thoughts, well, it's got to start with owning our thoughts, okay? So just knowing that, what we think inclines us to feel a certain way and then act a certain way. All right, that's an important first thing to own. The second thing we have to own is also what we call our property lines, right? We talk a lot about locus of control, things that are inside and outside of our locus of control, which really just means the location, like boundaries, like owning what is yours and allowing somebody else to own what is theirs, and not trying to creep over and take control over something that's rightfully theirs, or even abdicate control over something that's rightfully yours and it's yours to steward. So allowing people to steward what's theirs and you being a good steward of what is yours. You do those two things, you're going to embody this leadership principle well. So today we're looking at the phlegmatic, And we're going to look specifically at where the phlegmatic has obstacles to embodying ownership, where they are inclined to do this well. But also just like what's some of the mindsets that are often going on behind the scene. Aaron is going to be our model phlegmatic. All right. So our secondary, it's a strong secondary. And so I'm going to have my coach hat on for this episode. And we're going to be walking through 2 examples of where Aaron showed up and had some struggles owning what she worked through to only move from a place of abdication to ownership. And we know it's going to be helpful.
Yeah.
Cool.
Let's do this.
All right. Okay. So Aaron, diving into this, your first situation here, we're kind of even going alongside and drawing from our temperaments workshop that we have, that leadership workshop.
Yep.
So one of those things that we explore in that workshop are triggers. Triggers are where we start reacting kind of instinctively. It's just a default neural pathway, call it.
Well, yeah, and a trigger is an indicator to something that you are about ready to either abdicate or like something within yourself that you're going to abdicate or try to take control of.
Yes.
It leads to aversion. It leads to disgust. It leads to fear. That's what a trigger does. And so we can kind of, I guess, assume or presume that these triggers kind of move us into this place of lacking that control, like move us to a place of out of control, whether it is we're abdicating something or we're taking.
Okay, so we're abdicating something inside our location. We're abdicating something in our locus of control, or we're grasping control over something outside of our location.
That's right.
All right. That's always going to lead to manipulation, by the way, folks. Okay. All right. So give me a trigger. Give me a common trigger that popped up for you.
Okay. So I hate to do this because I'm always talking about our team.
That's okay.
But it is a leadership thing,
this is
right?
this is you owning your stuff
right
in your place of work. And guys, your unique call is supposed to be there's cross that's built in there. If it's not drawing the, crud to the surface to be dealt with, then maybe it's not challenging you enough. So, okay. Place of work, getting challenged.
So, and I recognize that this is a thought, but I have not been coached on it yet. So I welcome your coaching. I have a belief, perception that feels very true, that some people on our team overcomplicate things.
Okay.
Overcomplicate tasks, overcomplicate some type of things. And the reason why this is phlegmatic is because phlegmatics love to conserve their energy. They love to make things simpler. They love things to be efficient because they don't want to actually give more energy to something that doesn't need it.
Okay. So a trigger.
That's why it's triggering.
A trigger for you is when people overcomplicate things. Okay. And you recognize this happening within our team.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you
just
give me
tasks and tasks. Yep.
Just tasks in general. Is there a specific event that comes to mind, Aaron?
Do you want me to include you in this?
You may.
Okay.
You may. I nailed you in the last episode.
Yeah.
So let's do this.
So we were talking about something with the temperaments and allowing bringing our resident coaches into coaching or whatever.
Okay.
And you, as you do very well,
very detail focused.
Yes. When kind of presented, this could happen. This is a problem that could happen. And I had this thought, he's overcomplicating this. And while I do, when you do push back and you do present these things, I get stuck in my mind because I'm why are we overcomplicating this? So I push back on that interiorly. So we'll just say, Matt, we're overcomplicating things in my mind. Maybe not in real life, but in my mind.
This is my I'm doing my best to hold the space.
You're doing a beautiful job.
It's like a slight smile and a slight oh man.
So we're going to challenge your coaching skills then.
Okay,
here.
let's do it.
Hold that space.
All right. Put my choleric to the test here. Let's do it.
So
you have this thought, he is overcomplicating things. What's the emotion that came from that?
Well, definitely aversion and almost like a disgust for it.
Aversion,
but like
disgust.
exhaustion.
Exhaustion.
Like, yeah. I would say it was probably the primary one. Like, he is overcomplicating this, and I'm exhausted, and I want to withdraw. Like, so like the
so that's
minute
going into the behaviors,
the actions, yes,
is withdrawal.
Yep.
Okay.
And it's just like, okay, like we're not going to talk about this anymore, or whatever. Or like I just kind of like, remove myself, or I start to like, I just make those judgments in my mind, and maybe even say out loud, which is not very a phlegmatic thing, but maybe a sanguine thing. You're overcomplicating this. Okay. I think you're overcomplicating this. So like even just that, but my immediate reaction is to withdraw.
Okay. Immediate reaction is to withdraw. We have some blaming going on. Potentially,
blame.
You're overcomplicating this.
I blame myself too.
Okay,
I'm like,
you blame
maybe
yourself.
I'm wrong.
Interesting.
Am I like taking crazy pills? Like, are we like?
That's one from my book.
Yeah, but like really, I think I'm like, maybe I'm wrong about this, and maybe I'm overcomplicating this, or so I kind of turn it inward.
Okay.
Here.
All right. So feel exhausted. He's overcomplicating this. I feel exhausted. And then we move into the blame game a little bit. We throw up our hands. We say, I'm done with this conversation. Then you have judgments on yourself. You start thinking, maybe I'm the one to blame. And ultimately, what's like the fruit? What's the result of this?
Well, I kind of like overcomplicate the situation.
You overcomplicate the situation.
Yeah, by making it more dramatic than it probably needs to be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. All right. So this is interesting. So again, we said in order to own something here, folks, you have to own God's design. All right. You have to recognize that what we think leads to our emotions and then our actions. Okay. And then those actions interact with the world around us and they produce some sort of result, some sort of fruit. Okay. And so in this case, again, Aaron had a thought. He's Matt, I am overcomplicating things. She felt exhausted from that. And then from there, she kind of backed herself. She withdrew from the conversation, said, we're not going to talk about this right now. There's some blame going on. You're overcomplicating this. You're making this complicated. And then she has some judgments on herself. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm overcomplicating things. But ultimately, it's a place of exhaustion, and it's leading to Aaron sharing, I'm actually inserting some complexity into the situation, making this more complicated than it needs to be. Okay. So let's start to like explore here. Great job, Aaron.
Thanks.
Okay. Great. So let's start to explore here, like what's in your locus of control and what's not. Because this is the next thing we need to own here, folks, in order to really lean into embodying ownership, right? So what's outside of your locus of control here?
Well, what you're thinking and what you're doing and the way that you strategize and the way that you think and feel about things that you're presenting, obviously all of that. And then what's within my locus of control is this thought.
Okay.
Which is actually producing exhaustion already, which is like the very thing that I'm like trying to avoid.
Okay.
But here's where I'm like, I feel like I'm abdicating my feelings over to you is through that thought that's blaming. It's like, you're the one that's the cause of my exhaustion. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm abdicating my exhaustion over to you.
Okay.
And so that is interesting to me because that is like a way of me abdicating that.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's abdication that's going on, and this is where you're abdicating your emotional responsibility. Is there anything in my locus of control that you're trying to control?
Yeah. Like the way that you strategize about things.
Okay.
Like I'm just like, you're doing it wrong.
Okay.
Like, this is way simpler than we can. Yeah. So like, I think I'm trying to control the way that you do things. I'm definitely not allowing that to just be.
It's so interesting here, folks. And this happens all the time. This is why it's so important for teams to really dive into and understand each individual's unique design, right? Because what Erin's running into right now is she has, in her unique design, she's got a way of approaching this situation. I have a different way of approaching this situation. Is one wrong or one better than the other? No. Is there an opportunity for there to be complementarity if we're open to it, right?
Yeah.
And so right now we're in the place where Aaron is not necessarily open to experiencing that complementarity, right? And so it's not just that we're closed off to the complementarity, but we're actually like fragmenting the team here as well. So that's something that we can put into the line with like the result line or the fruit line here. Okay. So based on this, Aaron, like, do you like where this is going?
No.
Okay.
But I know that I feel justified in keeping it.
Okay, tell me why.
The interesting thing is I think I feel justified in keeping it because I think it will conserve energy. Like if you just thought and strategized the same way that I did, it would just like remove all the complications and like we would just go through everything peacefully. And so And then from that situation, I would feel at peace, right? And so I'm thinking that this belief is actually protective in a sense.
So the belief is protected, and it's actually guarding peace.
And my energy, too.
And your energy. And it's interesting, like it's guarding peace, and peace is like that tranquility of order. It's actually like where the team is, peace is something that draws together, right? But we can see in the fruits that were showing up is there's actually blame, there's distancing, there's shutting down, there's kind of like moving, like we're shutting off communication here. So it's actually what's actually happening is we're getting some fragmentation that's going on. This is why we really dig into this, folks, because we choose things that we believe to be in keeping with our greatest good. Here, Erin is choosing this thought. Matt's overcomplicating things because she believes ultimately it's going to preserve the peace.
Yeah, and it's going to simplify things.
But
it doesn't. It does the opposite.
Right. It's so, and this is where we can start to see the diabolical inverse showing up here. Not that Aaron is diabolical, but this is like what sin does in our lives, and there's no blaming. It's like, okay, opportunities to repent and grow. And grow in charity here.
I mean, but what I'm realizing is like there's a selfishness in my own
selfishness.
Yeah, that self-protection. Whenever we go into self-protection, like even if we're like trying to protect from a circumstance or from an emotion, is you do automatically cut yourself off from the other person. It becomes divisive. It becomes that division, and it's not only sinful, right? It's not only something that you need to go and confess, but also it's like it doesn't create good fruits anyway. So I just think, so often what I love about this entire series that we're doing, a lot of our beliefs that we're taking each of the temperaments through seem what we call like pretty thoughts. Like
noble or...
Like Matt is overcomplicating it. I think a lot of people from the outside view would say, yeah, that seems like a helpful thought. But for me, it's not. It's like the opposite of helpful, and it's actually perpetuating and keeping me in this cycle of something that I'm trying to avoid.
Yeah.
Which is exhaustion.
And even that thought, Matt is overcomplicating things, can be a neutral thought. Like some people that may be phlegmatic and they may say, hey, this person's overcomplicating things.
And I can simplify it.
And I can, So it's framing it and putting it into a context versus Matt's overcomplicating things, and that's terrible. Like that needs to be fixed right now, or that's a bad thing, or that's
stealing something from me, like stealing my time and energy from me.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So we're gonna like moving forward here with this coaching. Eric, you do great, by the way.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's me fishing for a reciprocal compliment.
Thank you. You are doing very well.
Oh my gosh. Thanks so much, baby. Filling my cup. All right. One of the other things that we notice, folks, and maybe you got this from the other temperaments that we've already explored so far, is that when you give into a trigger, like you just allow the trigger to kind of take you where it goes, and you just, whatever thought is there, you just go. What often happens is we abdicate our contributions. So every single one of our temperaments has some like areas of contributions and natural gifts that show up in it. But what often happens when we show up in those triggers, we let go and we don't show up in their contributions. We abdicate those things. And it kind of forces us into our weaknesses. Another thing that happens is we often create more non-ideal conditions for us as well. So we're going to explore that here a little bit. Okay, so Aaron,
or we solidify non-ideal conditions.
Sure,
like we kind of allow ourselves. We
reinforce those
to
non-ideal.
be victims to that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And so like non-ideal conditions again are the conditions that make it complicated to show up in your contributions, right? So triggers, just giving into them, not owning them, will always incline you to some sort of abdication of your contribution and creating more of the environment that you hate.
Yeah, and just by the way, contribution is just an area where you are self-gift naturally.
Yes.
So like it's an area where we become that imago Dei of what God is like creating in us. Like we just become that. We become that self-gift, that sincere gift of self that John Paul II talks about.
Yeah, and that's how we participate in the body of Christ. Yeah. Okay. So what are some of the contributions, Aaron, that I want to start here? What's a contribution that you gave up or that you abdicated here?
I have to laugh because, and this is from our leadership assessment chart that we have. Guys, if you're watching, you can see it. But we take people through this. But I have to laugh because this was like the first contribution my eyes went to. And it was, I simplify complicated processes and tasks.
Okay.
So I like not only blamed you for my emotions and all of how I was responding and creating division on the team there, but also I was abdicating this contribution that could really have been used in this situation.
Okay. So the irony doesn't escape us here. Awesome on that. Okay. What are some of the non-ideal conditions that you were creating for yourself too?
Non-ideal. So I wasn't really giving myself permission to share my opinion.
Okay.
So like when you have a phlegmatic on your team, just know this ahead of time. Like sometimes they just need that extra prompt of you going like, hey, can you share your opinion here? Because they'll just automatically assume that they don't have any opinion to share. But when you kind of like give them that space to do that. So that was probably an ideal condition, opportunity to share my opinion that I walked away from.
Yeah, you literally shut down and you didn't share anything else.
Yeah. What's another contribution that I think is that I abdicated is I actually, as a phlegmatic, steady the team when circumstances threaten our unity. Like I have a way of just kind of steadying the ship and just being like, okay, let's clarify things. You're doing this. And, just kind of like breaking the whole thing down.
You're really good at like, at a point of friction, keeping a hopeful mindset.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome.
So I abdicated that too.
Okay. So here, like Erin's done a great job of just identifying like where this thought is led and where she's abdicated. So now here, like, let's lean into ownership. What do we want to do going forward? And what this looks like here, folks, is we when we come to understand our contributions, we can start to insert some questions, ask ourselves some questions. How, in the same exact circumstance, how can I actually show up in one of my contributions? All right. The contributions and being intentional about showing up in your contributions, it's almost like it diffuses the trigger situation, right? And it puts you from this place of powerless, which is where trigger goes, to a place of empowerment. It's like, okay, how do I want to show up as gift? That's going to be the biggest thing that I can do, or the best thing I can do in this situation. Okay. So what are some of your contributions, Erin, that you can, when this shows up again, you can bring to the table here, to kind of jumpstart you showing up as a gift?
Yeah. So one thing that a phlegmatic is they're calm under pressure.
Okay.
So when everyone's like, they're just kind of like the ones that will like slowly call 911, whatever. If there's like, they just are calm under pressure. So that, like, I probably need to tame my sanguineness a little bit in that moment, but that's okay. I know that that's accessible to me. Another thing is, I avoid unnecessary conflict. I remember another hairstylist when I was working in a salon, and it was like a lot of hairstylists there, which could be a very dramatic experience, right? And I would just kind of remove myself and be over. And I remember another hairstylist saying like, "Hey, I just noticed you're never like involved in any of the drama." And I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, it's kind of exhausting for me to be involved in that." And I was like, thank you. But like, I knew that was my phlegmatic coming out. And yeah, anyway, so I can kind of de-escalate dramatic situations. Okay. And yeah, and open things up for rational discussion. Like just bringing things back to the facts. That's actually one of my favorite coaching drills to teach the coaches is like, find the facts of the situation. Like if you find a client who's just like dramatizing everything, just bring it back. What are the facts here? Like let's bring this back to a rational discussion.
Yeah.
here.
What are the facts here? Like what are, even in this case, like what are Matt's gifts?
Yes.
What are and,
what
and
do
how,
I know to be true?
Yeah, like what do I know about Matt's unique design and how Matt approaches things, and like how, and like start with the basis that Matt's not trying to overcomplicate things, but he's really trying to like show up and like bring his contribution to the
figure
table
this
here
out.
as
Yeah.
well. Okay. All right. Cool. Anything else?
No, I think that's it.
Cool. All right. What are some of the ideal conditions that you'd like to lean into and create for yourself?
I mean, I think just an acknowledgement of my gifts and my strengths, like just saying like, oh, this is what I am kind of good at this. And like, just to, like I said before, open up opportunities just to share my opinion and to not just assume that I'm lazy and I don't want to do a lot of extra things, which I mean, I think is true too. Like I can own that.
But it's also a big presumption here too.
Right.
And like one of the things I know that you personally hate, and I think everybody hates this, is when somebody presumes the worst in that person. And so it's like, okay, yeah, like I'm just going to
not presume the worst in myself too.
Exactly. Yes.
But also be willing to take ownership for, okay, yeah, like I'll own that. Like I didn't want to do something extra. But like truly as a phlegmatic in these situations, I'm not just thinking about myself. I'm thinking about the entire team. And like in complete honesty, I'm like, how do we simplify this so everybody doesn't have to waste their time on trying to figure this out, right? So like, anyway.
Cool. All right.
And that's that.
How's that feel? How'd that work for you?
Good. I mean,
how was it for you, baby?
It's weird. Anyway, I'm going back to that original thought. He's overcomplicating this. And I'm saying, okay, if this were to happen again, like what would I say to myself? And I think it would just be like, how can I show up in my gift here and give space and opportunity for him to share all of the things and just bring it back to a rational discussion?
Yeah. Yeah. Folks, when we show up in our areas of contribution, we make space for other people to show up in their contribution.
Yes.
Like that's it. And like when we give into our triggers, when we don't own our triggers, we actually don't show up in our contribution and we deny somebody else showing up in their contribution. It's so antithetical to what it means to really be operating on a team. Right. That's why this ownership principle is so huge. And that's why, like, guys, this has changed the way that we talk through things in our marriage.
Yeah.
Right. And it doesn't mean that we don't get heated, but at least we've matured to the point where we kind of create some space. And sometimes, like, we literally need to, like, walk away for a minute or two and just kind of pause and let emotions settle a little bit and, like, come to some of these conclusions on our own. But there's such a trust that Aaron and I have built over the years because we know that when we separate, we're not separating to stew and ruminate. We're separating to really take it to prayer, bring it to reason, like take these things through the metanoia Catholic reason cycle process, right? And process through these things, own what's mine, like give back what's not mine. We do this on our team as well. And so I've been on those teams where you hold grudges for a long time.
Yeah.
And it just, that builds resentment that slowly erodes the team over time. And it makes it miserable. And we just can't be friends.
And it's exhausting.
In the workplace, right?
Yeah.
We got to keep things professional, right? Where putting things on the table like this, there's something that it's unifying, and that's great, right? Who doesn't want to be on a unified team? Okay. Example 2.
All right, let's do it.
Trigger number 2. What's another trigger for a phlegmatic that you can own, Aaron?
Other people's irrationality and excessive negative emotions. It's totally a thought too. It's like excessive, like, because like, here's the thing about a phlegmatic. They are, if we were to look at, they don't react quickly. They don't react with intensity, and they let go of things pretty quickly. And so anybody who is not phlegmatic has excessive emotions, has excessive negative emotions even. And so, so like it's a judgment of other people's emotional reactions to things. And this is super helpful for me actually as a coach, because people will share with me some really deep things and I'll just kind of be I'll hold the space really well. Like in that space,
job.
I'm not like, we need to like do something about this right now. Like I don't really play into that. It's just kind of, so it helps in a lot of areas, but when it turns into a judgment, it's an issue.
Yes. Okay. So, others' irrationality and excessive negative emotions. Give me an example.
So Avila, like when I have work in the morning and our sweet little girl Avila is melancholic and she doesn't really like, especially when we have like long gaps off of school, she has a really hard time going to school in the morning and she gets like really clingy and really kind of like overly emotional.
Which is hard when you go to a Catholic school and every single feast day is a day off from school.
Just saying, we love you, Donahue Academy, but I mean, it's kind of...
That's a little excessive. It is an amazing school. It's actually like the number one classical Catholic school in the nation.
So we'll take a couple extra days off. Anyway,
totally
I'm being coached here, so let's bring it back.
Well, that was per Cardinal Newman Society. They just started doing high schools, and our school, top of the list. Woo-hoo. Pretty awesome. Come to Ave Maria.
Yeah, so we're happy with Donahue. We love you guys. But yeah, I had this thought.
Okay.
Which is she's making her own mood worse. Like, it's like, I don't want to see you being in a bad mood and being sad and scared and all the things that you're dealing with right now as a mom, because I love you. And also this isn't helping. Like I've heard myself say that a lot. Like, this is like actually making this worse.
Your crying is making things worse. Okay.
For you and for me. But for you.
Thanks for the honesty there.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So she's making her own mood worse. Mm-hmm. That's the thought in this situation. Okay. Mm-hmm. What's the motion?
Well, I'm frustrated. And then like from that frustration, I blame her for making my mood worse.
Okay.
And feeling like pressure to kind of like, change her thinking and like quickly do that. And, just kind of like be rational about it, even though she's like 5. Mm-hmm. And not even of the age of reason, like I remove myself. I will just withdraw from the situation. Yeah. Right. From the situation. I'll just be like, and I'll be like, Matt, you got to drop her off. I can't do this. Like, so I'm abdicating my emotional situation over to a 5-year-old.
Okay. All right.
Who I love dearly, but I do not suggest doing that.
Okay. So we follow this again here, folks. The thought, feeling, and actions, and ultimately we'll get to the results here. So thought, she's making her own mood worse. The feeling is that frustration. And from there, she removes herself, like literally moves into a different room. Mm-hmm. She
I
puts headphones on.
My emotions over to my 5-year-old.
Yes, that's an important thing here. Abdicate emotions over to the 5-year-old. And then she says, hey, Matt, you're taking her to school because I can't deal with it. There's even like those words. You say those words, I can't deal with this right now.
Yeah.
And then ultimately, what's the fruit, Erin?
I make my own mood worse. I actually make my own mood and like everybody else's, because like I know she picks up on what I'm doing too. She's like very sensitive. And so
does this guy.
And Matt too. I make everybody's mood worse. I do,
And here's the thing. We always want to say, like, it's you. I don't think you can say we make everybody's moods worse, but you can say I contribute to non-ideal conditions of my family.
Yeah, of course.
All right. So like that's the thing.
Sure.
We get to choose our emotions, but like we get to like maybe it creates some non-ideal conditions. Okay. All right. With a husband and a daughter that really love that tender connecting
I kind
time.
of perpetuate the issue.
Okay.
So
all right.
if we were to be really clear on the fruits, that's what it is.
Got it.
I perpetuate that issue.
All right. Let's explore. Thank you. Great job at that, Erin. Thank you for. Let's explore here the what's inside outside your locus of control. What are you? What is outside of your locus of control in this situation?
Well, Avila, how she acts every morning, and it's like, yeah, that's how she acts, how she's thinking, how she's feeling. Even I want to say like it's completely out of my locus of control because I could change it, but like my schedule, like, so if it's like I have something like I need to like prepare for or whatever, and I do have to kind of like get to it and take care of things.
So it's inside your locus of control to set your schedule, but once your schedule is set, if you've got an appointment that's going on,
Right.
that's just the reality.
Exactly. You, like what you do those are all things outside of my
what's
locus
going on
of
in my
control.
schedule
Yep.
for that day. Okay.
Right.
All right. Whether or not our golf cart is working.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Golf cart living. Ave Maria. Love it. Okay. So things that are outside, those are some things outside your locus of control. What are some things that are inside, Erin?
Well, definitely this thought, like she's making her own mood worse.
Okay.
My emotions, my own frustration, what I'm doing, what I'm abdicating. Like, and like I said before, I'm just like abdicating my emotion of frustration. Like really what's coming from the thought, that frustration is coming from the thought she's making her own mood worse, not from her actions. And so I'm abdicating that over to, and like blaming. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's been times where I've seen like you respond very tenderly and like you hold the space and you're asking questions and you're kind of trying to understand her a little bit more emotionally. And that certainly is helpful. There's a connection that's taking place there. There's like, okay, yeah, you can feel sad and everything. And here's like an opportunity to kind of look forward and grow. And
she loves that. And it works.
There's connection.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It actually like kind of moves. So you can even start to understand what she's desiring a little bit more. I think that's something we could throw into the result line here as well. All right,
from another thought for sure.
Right, but like, well, no, that's something that you can is that like I make my own mood worse, and I don't really understand what's going on behind my daughter. I never really get curious about what's going on behind.
Sure,
right? Because we've seen the inverse where you actually ask those questions, and those have been, frankly, they've just been easier mornings. Right? That's a thought, but I got a lot of evidence for it. Okay.
Yeah.
So, awesome. What is, like, who do you think wants you to keep believing this thought? Let's go with that question, Erin.
Not God, like just, it's kind of simple. It's like, it seems factual. She's making, and here's the thing, I could probably argue for that fact and say like, she is making her own mood worse because what you think creates your emotions. And so for me to sit there and argue that fact and cling to that isn't really helping because it's continuing on with this thought that's leading to not great fruits.
Okay.
And so I can find the truth and the evidence to support it, but looking at the fruits and they aren't good, and I'm not showing up as like a charitable mother in this place, I'm like, it's probably the enemy who wants me to think this.
Okay, so that's
not
like,
God.
And I love how you answer that question because like you can ask these questions. Is it true? Like, is this 100% true? And then your brain's going to go looking for all the evidence of why it's true. And maybe you can substantiate that, like, in this case, she's making her own mood worse is like 100% true. It's like, great. Well, if it's true, then hold on to it. Hold on 1 second.
Yeah.
Like, we got to take a look and see what the fruits are because that's like, it's by the fruits you will know them.
Yes.
Right? As Christ says here. So you can see the fruits. There's something here that indicates that perhaps old Ponytail would be happier with you keeping this thought.
Yeah, I mean, it creates division. It creates a lack of charity. There's just like a lot of vices that I move into. It's not the fruits of the Spirit, right? Let's just say that. It's not the fruits of the Holy Spirit. So,
not a coconut. Fruits of the Spirit aren't a coconut. That's all I know. So, I've got a daughter in kindergarten right now. Okay.
If you haven't figured that out
is teaching them the fruits of the Spirit.
Yeah.
Which I'm like just learning how to memorize as an adult from that song. Okay. So, do you believe that this thought is useful or protective somehow?
Yeah. I think it's actually protecting me from like, I guess over empathizing a little bit. Like it's protecting me from like feeling uncomfortable and being like, I don't want you to feel this way when you go to school. And like that disappointed, and sad. So it's like, I believe that it's protective somehow.
Okay.
In that way.
It's protective somehow.
But it's not. I mean, it's not creating the best fruits like we were saying. Okay.
So like it's protective somehow. Got it. And the fruits are showing that it's actually causing more harm. Got it. Okay. In this situation, right, where she's getting frustrated and you're starting to feel that frustration, like what else could be true? What could be a different way that a perspective you might take on the same situation?
Well, I mean, I have taken a different,
when it's worked, what have you done?
I've just paused and I've been like, tell me about it. I just like, so you're scared. So you're like, I just kind of help her identify the emotion that she's feeling. And just kind of slowly and calmly asked her some questions.
Okay.
Allowed her to have her emotions, not try to change them. Even just sympathize and just been like, hey, when I was little, I used to, like when I was afraid, this is what I would do. And so just taking that time to do it, and really the thought that leads to those actions. Well, okay, I'm going to go backwards. The emotion that leads to those actions are like, it's like this compassionate curiosity.
Okay.
And then the thought is, she's experiencing something that I want to find out.
Okay.
So
she's
it's
experiencing something I want to find out, and that leads to compassionate curiosity for you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, like I want to know what my daughter is experiencing on a deeper level.
Okay. And folks, we can, like, Erin could do those things that she just shared. She could just kind of go right to the action line here, and she could say, I can start asking questions. I can start sharing stories of my own, pain and emotions when I was a kid and things like that. But if she's still doing that from a place of frustration, it's going to show up. It's not really, it falls flat, right? And so we have to go back to the interior, the root. What's the thought? What's the perspective that we want to do that's going to incline us? This is integrity here, folks. That's going to create that emotion of that, in this case, compassionate curiosity. And then that naturally inclines Erin to do some of these actions that she has here. She doesn't have to open up a book and says, the parenting book, it's like, when your kid starts crying, do these things. Like, a lot of us think we have to do that. No, it's like, when your kid starts doing these things, if you want to do these things, what's the emotion for you?
Right. How do you want to think?
How do you want to think about it?
I mean, that's the question. How do you want to think about this?
Yes.
Moving forward, how do you want to think about this? When this happens again, because it will happen again, how do you want to think about it instead?
Yes.
Instead of thinking she's making her own mood worse.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even though I have a lot of evidence to support that, I know that is not a helpful thought. And so now it's like, I know my daughter has something inside of her that I want to find out.
Got it.
And I also know how she responds when I'm trying to be like, it's okay, get over it, right? Like I'm trying to like rush her through. She hates to be rushed. And so just to kind of be that quiet and calm presence for her, I think is really helpful.
Beautiful. Okay. What contributions were you kind of abdicating here in this situation, Erin?
Well, okay. Some of the contributions that I was abdicating was just, I'm calm under highly emotional situations. I'm calm under pressure during highly emotional situations.
Yeah. Or like even diffusing conflict.
Yep. Yeah. Like even if it's interior conflict.
Yes. Okay.
Right?
All right. So abdicating those things. What were some non-ideal conditions that you were creating?
Let me see. Like I'm not dedicating time and energy to just connect.
Okay.
To connect and to have like rational, kind of slow and calm
even keel
discussions.
Dispassionate discussions. Yeah. Like
I mean, here's the thing. I can lend to my daughter, like in this situation, I can lend to her that peaceful way of thinking. She doesn't have to take it or not, but
you can model it.
I can model it. I can lend it to her in that situation and really be her, rational thinking at that point, which is like what we're called to do as parents. Like,
yes,
we're supposed to be, for the age of reason, we're supposed to be that rational thinking person, in your child's life. So
yeah, there's a lot of gray matter in there. Okay. Contributions that you could lean into here, Erin, to kind of move you from that place of being triggered into that place of gift.
Peaceful, even keeled, not easily provoked, demeanor. I'm calm under pressure. I create space for others to share their opinions and be heard, like share what she's going through. I do create space for that. I mean, I could take all the things that I do in coaching, that I love doing in coaching, and just apply it to my daughter. And just be like, tell me all about it. Yeah. I'm not scared of what you're going through.
Yeah.
I just want to know, and just modeling that behavior. Yeah. Those are some of the contributions I would do.
Yeah. And folks, this is why it's so awesome to know your contributions, because jumpstarting your contribution is as simple, like take the contribution. Maybe it's I create a safe environment where others have permission to strive, fail, and strive again. Yeah. And just asking the question, how can I create a safe environment here where others have permission to strive, fail, and strive again, right? Just get your brain thinking in the specific circumstance, how am I going to bring this contribution, which is I'm inclined to bring it forward. It's part of who I am. It's part of my unique design. God gave it to me to be used, not to be buried in the sand, but to be brought and used.
Boom.
And I do it uniquely well.
Yeah.
Arguably the best in the family.
Yeah.
Aaron's like the best one in the family to bring those phlegmatic contributions to the table.
And you know what's cool?
Not me.
You leave space for it, though. I notice when I step into that role, you'll just kind of like remove yourself. And it's good. It works out well, I think.
Sure.
Yeah. So like you kind of do make space for it when I do choose that.
Well, what I tend to do is I'm putting the lunch together and I'm getting the clothes laid out and like I'm making sure that all the logistics, that's like leaning into my choleric contributions right there. And I'm just kind of like creating a space for mom and daughter to have this nice little space. So it's a great teamwork here.
Yeah.
High five. Right?
Thanks.
Cool. All right. Love it. What are some ideal conditions that you could create in this situation?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it kind of looks like the contributions, but I think just create that space for her to share honestly. And just be like, you don't need to get rid of these emotions. We don't need to be afraid of them either, right? Because that just adds on extra drama. But it's just like, just tell me what's going on. So just creating that space, that mental space and that emotional space for her to experience what she's going through, but also not resist it.
Got it.
So
Got it.
Safety and security, and just being like, it's so funny because it's so opposite of how I was showing up, but it's like I'm not afraid of your emotions. Like your emotions don't affect me in that way.
Yes.
And just to kind of like give her that space where that is happening, like, and be like, that is the truth. Like your emotions of sadness and sorrow, and they are not affecting me. I love you and I don't want you to be feeling those, but like, it's not affecting me. And so being that model for her and just being like, okay, we can kind of non-dramatically, objectively look at our emotions, and that is okay. That's healthy and good, and we don't have to make them mean something that they don't mean. Yeah.
Beautiful. Awesome.
That's what I would do for her.
Folks.
That's it.
That's it. So like, again, like reiterating why ownership is so important. Like when we own what is ours and let somebody else own what's theirs, we create space for us to step into our area of contribution, which, guys, every team needs our contribution. That's why we're on the team, to be able to make our contribution as a gift. But it also creates space for somebody else to step in and make their contribution a gift. Versus when we don't own, we stop showing up in our contribution. We stop being a gift, but we also step on other people's contributions.
Yes.
Right? It has an opposite effect.
Yes.
All right. And it can create a lot of disunity on the team, whether your team is your marriage or your family or your place of work or your parish. Right? It's important for us to own.
Yeah. One thing before we move on to our next portion of the series.
Yeah.
Which
we're going to be doing
influence. Ooh, this is going to be so cool. I do want to mention something, because with each one of these examples throughout these last 4 podcasts, we talked about triggers. And one thing that we explain to people when we're taking them through our workshops is triggers cause you to fight, flight, or freeze. Okay. Just like fear does that, right? It's just like, it's kind of like our immediate response. So depending on your temperament, you're going to have a favorite one of those that you do. I think phlegmatics, they either freeze or they they flay.
Flay?
They flay.
They fly.
They
flee.
fly away. They flee.
They flee.
Probably sanguines and cholerics probably would fight maybe a little bit more or flee. And then melancholics may internally fight with themselves.
But they'll freeze,
But they will
externally
freeze. Yeah.
Yes.
So I think that's interesting because like even just the way that you react, the way that you abdicate or try to control the other person shows up differently in all the other temperaments. So just as you're going back, maybe you're going back to listen to those, just kind of ask yourself, okay, what does my temperament do? How do I show up in these ways?
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, important to embody ownership. If you don't embody ownership, you can't move on to influence. All right. Because ownership is the first step when it comes to influence.
Yes.
Because if we take ownership out of influence, we'll end up in manipulation. All right.
Amen.
More on that to come. But thanks for being with us. Please like and subscribe. And again, if this is working for you, if you're growing in this, or you see this as an opportunity that you of personal growth that you want to bring to your team, whether it's at your parish or your place of work, contact us. Go to CatholicCoaching.com. We've got a form there you can fill out that just requests a little bit more information on how to get a workshop scheduled with us. We do them online, but we can also do them in person.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, guys. God bless you. We'll see you next week.
See you. Hey, thanks for sticking with us in the Catholic Coaching Podcast. If you like what you heard,
Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you again.